Oh, it's Pam. Hi, Pam.
Hi, it's my son's name. I gotta figure out how to just make it always me. It always logs in as him. So
Yeah, yeah. Well, you can always go up and change. But
yeah,
anyway,
I will. I
you're
will.
a really good looking Charlie.
Thank you. Here we go.
And you're back for more. Well, that's good.
I know I can't get enough of this because I want to kind of get a library of your recipes and stuff going on and get your tips. So it's very helpful.
Nice. So I'm so glad. And
Yeah.
one of the things that I was talking about with my group this morning, because we brainstorm ideas, is this whole idea of meal planning and menu
Yes.
reservation and getting organized around that. So I work with a company that does that work for myself privately. And so I've been in touch with them to maybe give us a hand. So I'll keep you posted about
Yes.
that. Awesome, wouldn't it?
That would definitely. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. As you can kind of tell, I have a household. So any planning I can do is great. Yeah. I have 3 kids and yeah.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, that's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot. And I think about even for myself, I just do for the two of
yeah.
us, and it's a lot
Yeah.
to do when you're
Yeah.
doing full time or when you're managing a household. Yeah,
Right.
so I appreciate it, and I'm going to continue to work on that.
Awesome. Thank you.
Pushing me, Pam.
Yeah.
Hi, Carolyn. This class is one of my first classes, so it is really packed with a lot of information, which I'll send out to you, of course. But just beware that I have a lot to download today. Now, it's a little bit more focused on ideas and with some recipes, but there's just a lot in there about how to eating healthy and then eating healthy on a budget and then some recipes. So that's where we're going today. Hi, Vicki. You have a nice office there. You can unmute yourself, say hi.
Yeah, I just turned a spare room into an office and it works out well for me. So I'm looking forward to your class.
Okay, great. Is this your first one with me?
Yes, it is.
Okay, and have you been to other Get Set Up classes?
Yes, quite a few.
Okay, okay, good. Well, I'm glad that you kind of forayed out into the area of cooking now, and I hope that you enjoy this class and some of the other ones that I have.
Well, I could use some help in the cooking area, so.
We have a lot of fun, and we talk a lot in these classes. This particular class is there may not be a whole lot of people in there, so in here, so I really encourage you to unmute yourself and talk as we go and ask questions. And I was just saying to Pam, we have a lot of information to go over today, but I want to focus on what's important to you. So don't be shy about asking me to slow down or to delve more deeply into anything that we talk about. So I think I'm going to go ahead. It's a couple of minutes after now, and I'm going to share my screen and we'll get started. And then if anybody else hops in, that's great. You should see my slide. Do you see that taco salad on the front screen? Doesn't that look good? That's my creation. That was last summer on my patio. So healthy meals includes a taco salad every now and then. My name is Deb Livingston, and I am from York, Pennsylvania. So I'm your guide here at Get Set Up. And my background is in training and development. So I did a lot of work in coaching and training of employees and managing. And now it's just really a lot of fun to do it, kind of pivot that skill into an area where I can talk about food, something everybody loves. Not everybody loved the things I talked about when I was working in my other job. So it's a lot of fun. And if you've been to Get Set Up classes, so you kind of know this, but we do learn from each other. I bring some pieces of the puzzle, you bring the rest, and we really do have a good time building on each other's knowledge. Ideally, if you're to participate fully, we see you with your camera on and with your audio working, or that you're participating in the chat. But having said that, I understand that you can't always be on camera, and that's okay too. We do record the classes, of course, and you can request that from help@getsetup.io after the class, which is where you go if you have any problems with connecting to us at all. Or if for some reason you don't get the email that I send out after the class. Now, I just want to take a time out and assure you that the things that I give you today, and there is a lot that we'll look at, are all going to be in that email. They'll be in the form of links probably that you'll click on, and then it'll take you right to the sites that we're looking at here. I do show you a number of different websites and sometimes in classes products, but we don't have a financial relationship with any of these website hosts or people or with any of the services or products. We just think that they're things that you would enjoy knowing about. So I was saying to Pam, I don't know how many of you heard this, but this is one of the first classes that I developed. And I realized that I just like to pack from my corporate days, maybe. I only had so much time and I had to pack all kinds of information into the time that I had. This is a jam-packed class. I have since started to back off a little bit and I'm getting better at that, but we've got a lot. We're going to talk about healthy eating, some tips for eating healthy for less, and then some recipes. This isn't an exclusive session on recipes. It's a little bit of everything. And we'll talk about some recipes for eating less meat, which just not only reduces the amount that you spend, but also can beef up your plant intake because you're substituting some things for meat. And if we get some time, we'll talk about some tasty homemade treats, an idea that I have for you. If we don't have time to talk about it, I'll certainly send it to you. I'll show you a picture and send it to you. So my question for you is what made you come today? Why did you sign up for this particular class?
I did because I wanted to know ways to eat healthy with it tasting good.
Okay. Yep. Fair enough. Yep. Good tasting food, but eating healthy. All right.
Yeah.
I also,
because I like to cook and I always like to learn new things.
Okay. So learning new ways of making food and just kind of getting out of your comfort zone or out of the usual things that you make. Carolyn, is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
I also gained a few pounds during the pandemic, so I'm trying to get those off. And so it's always good to know more healthy eating recipes that are tasty, but aren't providing too many calories.
Yeah, I hear you on that. Boy, we got that.
Yeah. And I think I liked the point you made about eating with less meat. I mean, we eat meat, but I would love to back off on it some because I'm trying to also get more of the grass-fed meats and such, which are a lot more expensive.
Very good.
So
yes.
yeah. So if we can fill it, and I have 2 boys and they need to be filled. So that's the challenge when you don't do as much meat without just starches.
I think about that when I see grocery carts going by me piled to the sky, and I think about the kids that are home and how much it must cost right now to feed a family of growing boys. So yeah, I hear you. I appreciate that. So what about healthy eating? When you think about healthy eating, one of the things you said, Pam, is maybe that's a little less meat. Vicki, you said maybe fewer calories so that you could lose a little weight. What else does healthy eating imply to you or mean to you?
Definitely less sodium.
Okay.
I mean, just less bad stuff.
Yes.
more well-rounded too, a well-rounded diet.
So greater diversity, less sodium. Yeah.
Yeah.
Healthy eating to me means more fruits and vegetables and just the things that are good for your body.
Okay. Yeah, sounds like you're talking about eating whole foods and eating real food and eating food that's just really nourishing. Okay. So I thought, how do we start this class? And I felt that talking about a few things that I think encompass healthy eating would be a good start. And it includes all the things you've talked about. Number one, I think it follows some sense of dietary guidelines. Now, I don't know, sometimes I don't necessarily agree with the government guidelines that are out there. I have my own thoughts about that, but it's a stake in the ground. It's something to start with. And so I want to make you aware of the dietary guidelines that are available for you to take a look at. The second thing is that it does, as you all said, emphasize fresh and whole and very minimally processed foods, because when we talk about processing foods, that's when we start to get into too much sodium. We start to get into preservatives that aren't good for our bodies, the dyes that are not good for our bodies. So just how do we get to making foods that are whole and not adulterated? And then selecting high quality and organic foods. And Pam, you mentioned this when you talked about meat. You know, you get that question, is it important to buy organic? And I have to say that yes, it is. Now, there are some guidelines, again, that I'll share with you about that. It's important to eat organic, especially with some certain kinds of produce and meats. So I'll talk about that. And lastly, provides variety, nutrient density, and some balance. So, you know, we talk about having a colorful plate. That's something the government has talked about for years, putting a lot of color on your plate, because the color is actually reflective of the vitamins and the phytonutrients that are in the foods that we eat. So when we have a colorful plate, that's a sign that we do have a diversity of vitamins and nutrients in that food that we're eating. If we're eating a typical old-fashioned meal with a slab of brown meat and a plop of white potatoes and a couple of green beans, we're not getting a lot of color in that meal. So we're going to hope to jazz that up a little bit. So I want to just take a look at these dietary guidelines very quickly. We do have classes on basic nutrition. Ravina teaches some classes on nutrition that go into this in more detail. And so you might want to explore some of her nutrition classes. We'll be having more on that. We're actually going to start looking at other food lifestyles so you can understand how you might plug into one of those, what one might be right for you. But these guidelines, this is a huge book that comes out every 5 years. There's a lot to read in here, but I am going to skip down here to, let's see if I can pick the right table. This table, because it shows us some of the very basics of what we should be getting in our diet per day. Now, I realize that, is this a little hard? Can you see this?
Yes.
Okay. So I just want to call your attention to the macronutrients that we should be getting in our diet each day. And our macronutrients are 3 things: protein, carbohydrates, and fats. And so let's look at that in just a little bit more detail. I don't want to belabor this, but if we look at our age category here, females 51 and over, males 51 and over, we're looking at having an average of 1,600 calorie input per day, or 2,000 for men. I don't think we have any men in the group. I think Betty, are you really Betty? You're not a man signed on here, are you? So I'll assume we're all women. And so we're at this 1,600 calorie range. Of course, that varies depending upon our activity level and our hormones and all of that stuff. The scale tells us what we need to be at. And the pandemic has really helped us become attuned to that. So when we look at protein, we are looking at about 10 to 35% of our calories, daily calories, to be in protein. And I actually tend to think that it's a little toward this higher end, because as we age, we need protein to keep our muscle mass built. So protein comes in the forms of what? Where do we get protein from?
Meat, Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, dairy.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Some beans.
Yeah. Beans are huge. Beans are huge for protein as another source, and often used if you're a vegetarian. So that's 10 to 35%. And then when we look at carbohydrates, 45 to 65% of our daily intake should be in carbohydrates. Again, this could be a little on the high, depends on your body. It depends on the food lifestyle that is right for you. But what I can say about this is that for the most part, we tend to eat a diet that is very rich in processed carbohydrates, in highly refined carbohydrates that break down into simple sugars. What that means is that they hit our system and they spike our blood sugar and they cause an insulin response. And because we eat too many in the Western world, too many refined carbohydrates, we are seeing an epidemic of type 2 diabetes. So eating a lot of white bread and baked goods and sugar in our coffees, our lattes in the morning, this all lends itself to an unhealthy eating style. And as a matter of fact, when you think about the idea of sugar down here, which is considered a carbohydrate, there is actually a guideline for sugar that we should be getting less than 10%. For women, it's less than 6 teaspoons of added sugar per day. Now, when I say added sugar, that's not the sugar that's in an orange or an apple. That's the sugar that you put in your coffee or put in a baked good or something like that. So less than 6 teaspoons a day. And to give you some kind of perspective on that, I'd like to ask this question. How many teaspoons of sugar do you think are in a 20-ounce bottle of Coca-Cola?
Yeah.
Take a guess.
12.
Little more. Wow, huh? 16. 16 is what is in a bottle of Coke. So, we can all get a lot healthier just by getting rid of soda in our diet. Get rid of that added sugar. Think about that. That is nearly 3 times the amount that we should be, more than 3 times, because we should be getting less than 6 teaspoons.
So are you saying that processed equals more sugar in a sense, or how are you?
Yes, that is really true too. So not necessarily. So soda just has sugar in it because that's what it is. But if you look at the back of a can of any processed foods, sugar comes in many, many different forms. And some of them we don't even recognize as sugar. Maltodextrin is sugar. There's all those fancy names for sugar, but you need to look at the label and see what added sugars are in there. Lots of processed foods use sugar. So another good reason to stay away from them.
So can I ask real quickly about bread then? Because that's my struggle. I bake bread, but I can't keep up with the amount of sandwich bread we need. So I need to buy it. But if I look at the sugars, I can't say they're extremely high, but I know it's processed. So how do I know if it's a good quality store-bought bread?
Good quality bread? Well, what you want is a whole grain bread, because white flour is almost the equivalent of eating sugar. It's a refined carbohydrate that hits our system and just sort of sets it on fire with its sugar response and the insulin response. So
even if it's homemade? Even if it's homemade?
The fact is that you need to minimize, I don't say eliminate, but try to moderate the amount of refined flour you use, because it has zero nutritional value. It uses the ectosperm of the grain to make the bread, and that has zero value. What has the value is the bran and the germ, which gets discarded, but it is used when they make whole grain flour. So what you're looking for when you buy bread at the store is for whole grain to be the first ingredient, some kind of whole grain flour to be the first ingredient, because the first ingredient is what is the most of in that particular product. That makes sense? Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Sure. So that's where you need to go with your sugars and your flours. Minimize those. So let's take a look at, sensitive.
Can I ask a question about diet soda? Because I've heard it's really bad.
Yeah, you can. What is your question?
Well, sometimes it helps me stay on my diet, but I've heard it's just very, very bad for you because of the sugar substitutes they put in it and whatever. So I just wanted your take on that.
I have gotten so far. I went that route too. So I went from having sugar sodas to having diet sodas to getting rid of them entirely, because they're just bad. They're just bad. So find something else that you might like to drink. Tea, if you can drink tea. For me, now this isn't a taste for everyone, but one of the things that I really like about soda is the fizz. And if you're a fizz person, you might try something called kombucha, which is a fermented tea. It is maybe an acquired taste. I see Pam is making a face. Have you tried it? You haven't heard it? You can unmute yourself. I can't hear you.
Sorry, I've just never heard of it. That's why I'm like, huh, because I'm a big Diet Coke drinker, I admit. So I need to know
Yeah.
this.
So kombucha, Kombucha, you would find in your dairy or in your cold drink section. And it is a fermented tea and it comes in different flavors. My favorite is the ginger flavor kind. I get the GT brand Gingerade. I really love it. I now make my own kombucha, which I can make for pennies. But it is an acquired taste. You have to see if you like it. It does have a little bit of sugar, more in the store than what I maybe have in the kind I make, but it's not a lot. So you can check the sugar amount on the back. It's far less. It's only a couple of grams. So I think it's fine. So that's an alternative. So is seltzer water or water that has lemon or lime in it. So in the summertime, I have a big container of water on my counter and I put all kinds of fruits in it and things like that. And it's just very refreshing. I'll put fruits that happen to be in season. I might get some fresh mint out of my garden and throw that in. You'd be surprised at the way that herbs can flavor water in a very refreshing, good way. And if you need a little sweetener, you can try a little stevia in that, which is an herb sweetener. You don't need a lot because it's very powerful, but just enough to give it a taste. What I will often say to people is try to really try to walk away from sugar for a couple of weeks. Just go cold turkey on anything sweet. And then when you come back to it, you will find that in most cases, your taste buds will have acclimated a little bit, gotten a little more sensitive, and you may be able to do with far less sugar than what you could before. So you might give that a try. Does that answer your question, Vicki?
Yes.
I was pretty long-winded about that.
No, thank you.
Sure. The last thing I'll say here about the 3 macronutrients is that fat is an important part of our diet, 20 to 35%. Please don't think that you need to eliminate fat from your diet. It couldn't be any further from the truth. Saturated fat, we do need to try to moderate a little bit, less than 23 grams of saturated fat. But if you take a look at basic lean meats and things, you can eat a lot of that for 23 grams of fat. So it's an okay fat to have. What is not an okay fat to have is trans fat. And that's found in your baked goods. They've done a good job because they've said they shouldn't be making products with trans fats. Some they still do. You will find them usually in some of the cheaper products. Just make sure they're not on the label anywhere. They are definitely not good in any amount. Like the old Pinto, not good, not safe at any speed, right? And then a couple of another highlight here would be sodium. And you talked about that, Pam. Less than 2,300 grams of sodium per day is what we should be getting, like maybe closer to 1,600. That's hard. That can be very hard, but it's especially hard when you're eating processed foods. So you should always rinse your processed foods if you are going to use them, your beans and the things that can be rinsed, because that gets rid of some of it, but not all of it. So try to go for fresh. And just for the equivalency, 2,300 grams is about a teaspoon. So that's a little bit on the macronutrients, and I'm going to check my time because I can tell we're only on slide 1 and look where we are, but we're having good conversation here. So let me skip down here. This is sort of a foregone conclusion based on what we've talked about. I want to show you something I'll send to you that will help you with picking high quality and organic foods. There is a group called the Environmental Working Group. It's a nonprofit. It does a really great job of working on environmental concerns and things that are beneficial to us. And one thing that they do is focus heavily on pesticides in food. And they generate every year a dirty dozen list of produce that should not be eaten except organically. We should not buy it because it's heavily laden with pesticide. And then they also publish a Clean 15 that tells you the produce that you can buy conventionally grown because it is not a problem as far as pesticide is concerned. And that's because of the types of pesticides used and whether they get into the system and into the actual vegetable or fruit itself. So when I send this to you, you're going to be able to go in and either respond to an email where they'll send you an attachment that you can print out, or you can just go into this and find a way to print it for yourself. I posted it inside my cupboard, so I would have it as quick access. But these are the kinds of things that are really have a lot of pesticide on, and you really should think about buying organic. Strawberries, one of the worst. Okay. Lots of fruits are bad. So you get an idea. Celery's bad. Well, they all are. So these are the things that you should avoid buying conventionally. That's what we call it when something is grown that is not grown organically. So then going back, looking at the Clean 15, you'll be happy to see that there are plenty of things that you can buy that don't have to be organic. Avocados, which are expensive enough, and asparagus and so on, are all fine this way. So that's a way for you to be selective and to mind your budget. I would say that buying meat, which we'll get to in a minute, is another story altogether. So quick tips to eat healthy for less. Shop the perimeters. That's where your fresh foods are. It's also where your price should be lower by unit, because the theory is that there's less handling. They're not processing it except maybe to wrap a rubber band around the bottom of the broccoli. So the unit price should be less for less handling and fresher. But there is an exception. Frozen vegetables that are just the frozen vegetables only, nothing else, are also very healthy and can be healthier than what you find in the produce section, because they're picked at a peak point and frozen right away before any of the enzymes that work on vegetables can work on them in the produce section and diminish the nutritional value. So another way to save some money is to start with what's in your pantry and then look for a recipe. Pick something out of your pantry and then Google recipe with whatever, recipe with rice or whatever's in your freezer, recipe with chicken. Reverse engineer your meal planning, and then go ahead and plan ahead and make a list. Because does anybody, well, I don't know about you, Pam, whether you have this problem because your boy's in the house, but do you ever throw food away? Do you ever throw food away because it goes bad? You've had it in there and you forget about it. You know, this is a way to, plan ahead and make a list and just get what's on your list so that you're not forgetting about food. You're using it all up. And then this idea of eating meat that's been grass-fed, that's been organically grown. You know, the interesting thing about animals when they are grazing on pasture is that they graze for medicine, for healing in their bodies. And so they seek out plants that have a wide variety of nutritional value and phytonutrients in them. That's just the way they're wired. And so we used to be like that a long time ago, but it makes sense for us to then eat that meat instead of the meat that has been grown on corn that has been coated with pesticides and maybe enhanced with whatever, and cows were not meant to graze on, were not meant to eat corn. They're ruminants. They have a couple of stomachs. So, and then shop sales and stock up. And I want to ask you if you use coupons now at the grocery store. Do you use coupons for food?
I use coupons every chance I can get.
Okay. Yep.
It's taking part next week virtually with World.
I'm sorry. Were you saying something further, Carolyn? You're muted.
No, I'm saying I use coupons. I use paper coupons and I use e-coupons every chance I can get.
Okay. Yep. Now, some people have come to this class and said, wow, I'd like to be able to use coupons, but I hardly ever see coupons for whole food, which is true. That I've noticed that myself, that's started to diminish over time, and they are trying to push us in that arena of processed foods. So I have an alternative, though, because lots of times you'll see the sales happening in produce, but they're in the flyers or in the circulars that you get at the store. And so there might be an easier way for you to plan by looking at the circulars from your favorite stores and then making a little bit of a trip around a few stores if they happen to be geographically convenient. I know that I use Whole Foods, I use the grocery outlet, and I use one other grocery store. They're all sort of in a loop that I can hit. And by going into Flip, I can find out who's got the best produce sales each week. So Flip is this website. It's also a mobile app where you can put your zip code in. So somebody want to give me their zip code?
49506 or whatever.
49506. I heard that one first. And we'll see this. And there we go. Well, here we go. So this is everything in your area, all of your stores and store flyers. If you want to hone in on groceries, you can go over here. Does this look familiar, Pam? You have a Meijer and a Push Time and so on. So you get a chance to go in there and take a look at all of their food deals. And you can do that while you're doing your weekly planning. And then there's coupons over here that you can access as well. So just a little tool there that might be useful for you. The other tip when we talk about adding protein here is to consider buying dried beans and using those instead of canned beans. They're healthier, less sodium, and a lot less expensive. I'm doing a lot on beans right now. In fact, the person I report to at Get Set Up said, "Are you having a bean thing?" Because I'm doing one on bean salads, I'm doing bean soups, but a lot of people are really interested in finding alternatives to meat. So buying dried beans gives you a lot of versatility and it is way cheaper. So if you spend maybe, let's just say $2 a pound on a pound of dried beans, that yields approximately 4 cans of beans, which usually come at a price of at least $1, right? Maybe more. So you're getting your dried beans for half the price that you'd be getting your canned beans. Yep, Pam.
Can I ask what the dried beans, when I've tried that, I cannot get them to soften. Do you have a tip on how to get them to, when you soak them?
Yes, you soak them overnight and then you cook them.
Overnight, so like 8 hours at least?
Yeah, 8 to 24 hours. So the night before, what you might do the night before is just put them in a pot of hot water or a pot of water and bring it to a boil, turn it off, and leave them on the stove. You don't even have to cover them, but leave them on the stove overnight. The next day, they'll take about 90 minutes to cook.
Awesome. No salt. You don't need to add salt. You don't.
Well, you can brine them. That's another. Come to my class. Did you come to the bean?
Nope.
The bean salad recipe. The bean salad class talks more about beans, so we'll get into that. All right. So tips you guys would add for eating healthy for less. Other little strategies that you have for saving money on good food? Wow, quiet.
Well, I use freezing things as a good idea. Like blueberries, when they're in season, I'll get those and then I'll freeze some of them and then use them in like a shake or even eat them raw. Like frozen. It's kind of a nice treat in the summer. So sometimes freezing really helps me.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I have a friend who grows blueberries and he lets me pick them for a little bit of nothing. So I pick blueberries until I can't pick anymore. And I do the same thing. And they're great just to pull out and eat, like you said, frozen. They're a nice summer treat and in smoothies. So that's a good idea. Save when things are in season.
Yeah, frozen grapes are good too.
What, Christine?
Frozen grapes are good also.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah, they're delicious. They're good in a little drink too. You can pop them in frozen. They're like little ice cubes.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to just also stop. Brandon, is there anything in the chat that we should be looking at? Okay. I guess not. All right. Let me take a quick look. Oh, no. He said no. I was looking in the chat. All right. So recipes for eating in season. And this was, if you can tell, something that I made up in the summertime. So I did this because this is when there was summer produce. This was in season in the summer. And I grow a garden, so I can have access to a lot of things. And do any of you grow a garden? Anybody?
We try.
Anybody? You try? Okay. Well, you can always try with something simple like some herbs, because that can be enormously beneficial in the summertime, especially. And if you have neighbors that are growing gardens, and lots of people are, I noticed that when I go to my garden store to buy my supplies, it's wiped out right now. So lots of people are doing the equivalent of victory gardens now. And I will tell you, when that's victory garden, that was back in the wartime, World War II, when we all had to pull together and help feed each other. So a little bit like that now, because prices of foods are going up, so people are gardening more. But I can tell you that for all of those people who may be just planting a garden for the first time, if their crops come in, they are going to be overwhelmed with their bounty. So they'll be looking to give away things, just like I am usually ready to give away zucchini. So you might find your farmers, find your fellow or gardeners, your neighbors, who might be ready to give some things away. So here's some of my tips for these recipes. This was a chicken breast with gorgonzola salsa. I did not use breast. I saved money by buying some boneless chicken thighs that I found on sale. So and they were organic. I froze some and I used some for this recipe. And then I used the tomato from my garden, some red onion, fresh basil, olive oil, salt. All of these things, even if you're buying them in season, if you're going to a farmer's market, if you can, or anywhere, oftentimes they'll reduce the price because it's so plentiful. Like you were talking, Pam, that you can get cheaper asparagus right now because it's in season. So then what we do with this is make a salsa out of it, and then use the breasts or the thighs and just season them a little bit. If I was doing this over, I'd probably season it. I'd probably rub a little oil on it and some other seasonings just to beef up the flavor of the chicken itself. And because the sauce has sort of got some Italian flavors, I'd probably go in that direction. And so you just let that salsa sit at room temperature and cook your chicken until it's done. In this case, if you use a breast, you can pound it down a little bit so it takes less time to cook, and do it in a non-stick skillet, about 4 minutes on each side or until it's done, which is 165 degrees. And you can also do this on the grill. So either way would work fine. And then there's gorgonzola cheese that's in this recipe. And if you like gorgonzola cheese, it adds a nice pop to it. But I would not mix it into the salsa. I would actually just sprinkle it on top, because if you have leftover salsa, you don't want it getting cloudy with the cheese. You can just add it as you go. So you can see that it's a relatively low, 178 calories, pretty low calorie kind of serving there. And you're getting a lot of variety here with your vegetables. Good way to get vegetables and diversity is with a salsa of some sort. And then this zucchini recipe was just easy. And I was looking for one that would be easy and without cheese, because I tend to throw cheese into everything that I make, and that can be a little overwhelming. We had gorgonzola with the chicken. So in this case, I just made a dressing using these herbs and aromatics: parsley, shallots, basil, capers, which give a nice pungent sour taste, a little lemon rind and oregano, olive oil, lemon juice, sea salt. Just make a dressing out of that, and then steamed 6 cups of zucchini and tossed it with that. Now, if you do like to punch it up a little, you can sprinkle it with something like a nice feta cheese. I ate it leftover by itself and put some feta cheese on it just to give it a little more flavor. This was my favorite, and I think that it would be a pleaser for a family. It's a fresh corn salad, so easy to make. And Pam, this will come together for you in a matter of minutes. You don't even have to cook the corn. It's got 6 ingredients: 3/4 cup of light sour cream. I don't know why you wouldn't be able to use light Greek yogurt as well. You could use that. and then Worcestershire sauce, a little seasoned salt, whatever you prefer, and then these fresh corn kernels. So you would slice those off the cob. So get yourself some fresh corn and cut it off the cob. And it seems like maybe we need a class on just how to cut corn off the cob someday, maybe. And then a cup of finely chopped red pepper and green onions, and mix it all together, and then put it in the refrigerator for a few hours so those flavors blend. Delicious. It's crunchy. You don't have to cook the corn. It's all raw. It's delicious. Thoughts about that? Anything there look good?
It all looks good.
Yeah.
Look at the color. Now this is a little muted, but because of the dressing, but imagine there's lots of color on that plate.
Mhm.
And if you're doing it in the winter time, just change out for seasonal vegetables. We've got roasted root vegetables, and I'll send you the recipe for those. And we've got a pomegranate salsa. Does anybody eat pomegranates? Have you ever used pomegranates?
I don't know how to.
I love them. The seeds are hard to deal with, but boy, they're good.
Yeah.
They are really good. So let's look at that a little bit, because you have to get familiar. You know, they're intimidating. You look at the pomegranate in the grocery store and you're like, what the heck do you do with that? I'm too busy. So let's look at the pomegranate. Let me get a good visual here first. So this is what they look like when they are cut open. You can see there's a lot of membrane running through. Of course, we're eating the seeds, and the important thing about eating a pomegranate is extracting the seeds, so you end up with something like this so you can use them. Now you can buy them. The Palm brand sells the seeds in little cups already done. Be very careful, because you want to make sure that they're very vibrantly red. They sometimes have those on the shelf. They get to be a little muddy colored. Doesn't take them long to go bad. So be careful with that. Get one that's extended way out if you buy it that way. But you can buy them like this, and then what you do is cut them open like this and just start. They're very pliable. Just get a bowl of water and then start to bend them around and pull that membrane out and scoot those seeds into the water. And what will happen is the pieces of membrane will come out as well, but they'll float to the top because it's lighter. The seeds go to the bottom. So that's how you do that. And then you can make this lovely salsa, which has some mandarin oranges in it, some red onion that you chop, and a little bit of jalapeno. Pickled jalapeno if you like it, but it's not a deal breaker if you don't have it. Cilantro and a little lime and a pinch of cumin, just to give it that kind of southwestern flavor. And all you do is mix it all together and let it refrigerate for a while so that those flavors mingle, like we talked about with the other salsa. So now you've got a winter salsa. See, in-season fruit here. And the roasted root vegetables. This is a very basic recipe, and you can amp this up in any way you like. Who makes roasted vegetables, root vegetables now? Anybody do that? Yeah. So how do you like yours, Pam? Well, how do you make yours?
I'm experimenting. I did a maple syrup kind of glaze over it the other night, which was a hit. That's all I do. I just put it in a sheet pan and throw it in the oven. Yeah.
Yeah. A little oil
Yeah,
and whatever
maple syrup,
and
yeah.
whatever. Yeah. Any kind of glaze that you want to put on that. So I'm just going, sounds like, there's some understanding of, you've got that. And this is a basic recipe that pretty much says what I just said. Now you can use parchment paper. I like that for easy cleanup under my vegetables. Try not to crowd them too much on the pan because they'll steam more than they'll roast. So that might look a little bit crowded to me, but you can judge for yourself. And in this case, they're just giving you some ideas of what you might use: sweet potatoes, carrots, parsnips. It says carrots or parsnips, makes me laugh. I would use both.
I have both.
And red onion, and you put Brussels sprouts on there, would be great. And then whatever herbs. I like rosemary, I like thyme, I like garlic on my roasted root vegetables. So 425 degrees, and depending upon how large you cook them, you can start checking them at 25 minutes, maybe tossing them a little bit before then, but they start getting done at about 25 minutes. It depends on how you like how you like the texture of your vegetables. So now you have another very colorful plate, but it is in season and it is whole foods and it is very, diverse. Some recipes. How am I doing? I promised you this was going to be fast and furious. Am I overwhelming you?
Oh, it's wonderful.
Is it okay?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So good, I'm getting to this. I wanted to make sure you got to see all these things. So here's my taco idea. Well, it's not mine, but it's one I found that I love because I have this question to ask you. What do you like about taco meat? When you think about eating meat on a taco, what is it that you like about the meat?
The spices on it.
The spices on it. Anything else? When you really think about it?
Texture.
The what?
The texture, maybe.
The texture? Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe even the heat a little bit, just having that as a contrast to the cool salad type ingredients or the vegetables. Yeah, so it's those things that none of which has a whole lot to do solely with the meat. So you can't necessarily taste too much. I have a hard time telling whether I'm eating beef ground beef in a taco or ground chicken in a taco because the flavorings really kind of absorb all of that. So if we take that in mind, why can't we use something else besides or in addition to meat? So this is an idea to expand your budget by using meat, but using vegetables with your meat. So let's just get a picture. Is it worth 1,000 words? We're using a cup of each vegetable, 4 different things here, to 1 pound of meat. And so we've got mushrooms, celery, carrots, and onions, but there's no reason why, if you prefer, that you couldn't just do all mushrooms. I wouldn't necessarily do all onions, but you could mix this up and match it up any way that you would like to do it. But maybe start here and see what you think.
Doesn't mushroom have protein in it too?
Mushrooms, let's look at a mushroom profile. That's not... They have lots of great minerals. I'm looking here. No, not so much.
Okay.
Protein. 6.6 of a gram.
Oh, no.
And that's in 1 medium mushroom. It's not terrible. I mean, it is something. So yeah,
Okay.
1%. It's 1% of your daily value of protein. It's got, I need to do something. This is not a very good thing that I'm looking at here. Mushrooms actually do have a lot of good properties about them. And I need to do just a whole separate class on mushrooms because this doesn't report it here. So mushrooms are good for you. Mushrooms are actually an environmental cleanup mechanism. Our environment cleans itself up. Mushrooms clean toxins out of things, which is very interesting. Okay, so you could throw cabbage in here too, which I think would be delicious. Very healthy. And there's a whole lot of ideas here. So you'll get this website and you can look at all these ideas. And does this freeze well? Yeah, it does freeze very well. So you can make a double batch if you want and then have it for later. Of course, if you make one batch that you make 5 times the amount because you're adding vegetables, that'll probably just serve your boys, Pam.
I know. I'm surprised though to freeze it. That would be great, but it's not soggy. I would think it'd be soggy.
I think it'll be just fine.
Okay.
Because it will it'll be, the mushrooms will be fine. The onions, yeah, it should be fine.
Awesome.
So we should try that. I have not tried freezing this, but I would try it and see how it is. So you can also, if you want to just experiment, instead of going with a whole pound of ground beef to start, maybe you just want to have this recipe, see if you like it. And then there is a recipe in here, a link to make your own taco seasoning if you want. Otherwise, just use what you have and moderate it according to your taste. I hardly ever really measure that. I just kind of put it in the way I like it, and you might be like that too. So then you can just put that, I like putting it on a salad. Those hard shell corn tacos, they're okay, but this is so much healthier. Mixed green salad with some guacamole. There's lots of fiber in in an avocado, lots of good fats. Same thing with olives, lots of good color here. So make sure you do use condiments. They're not bad things. And then there's the idea of some vegetarian lentil chili. This is a super healthy recipe and it's very inexpensive. And Pam, you could put this into your, I keep referring to Pam because she has shared with me her challenges with feeding a family and having time. So if anybody else has challenges, I'd love to hear them and we can talk about those too. So this one has no meat in it, but it does have lots of protein with black beans, kidney beans, and lentils, and then your general chili spices. And so you put everything in the crock pot and cook it for about 4 hours on high.
I've noticed they are referring to coconut oil. I didn't think coconut oil was good for you at all. You know, I've been trying to do more olive oil, and I keep noticing a lot of these recipes have coconut oil. Am I just misled about that, or?
Yeah, there is, it's funny. And I keep looking and looking more. I hear it both ways. But I do like a Dr. Mark Hyman, who comes from the Cleveland Clinic Functional Medicine Department, and he loves coconut oil. And I know it has saturated fat in it, but I'm still on the quest to find out more about coconut oil. I use it. I use it along with using avocado oil, which is a very good oil that has a high burn point, so you can fry with it if you want. And it has a milder flavor than olive oil if you don't always want the flavor of olives in your meal. So those are 3 good ones as far as I'm concerned. What you want to stay away from is vegetable oil.
Oh,
Just something called vegetable oil.
no, why is that bad? I didn't know that was bad.
Yeah, well, that's a combination of all kinds of just not very good oils.
Okay.
They're not good oils. Someday we'll do an oil session too, just to talk about that. But when I name those 3, those are the ones that you should be looking for, and go organic. I can tell you that the avocado oil, the brands Mary Ann and Top Chosen Foods are 2 good brands of avocado oil because they are pure avocado oil, and because they have not been found to be rancid. That was a test by UC Davis, that when they went to check that, because somebody did that a few years ago about olive oil and found out all these terrible things about olive oil, how some olive oil isn't really olive oil, it's blends of other things. And so we have to be careful. Everything is a wormhole. more to research. So I try to keep up with some of that and share with you what I learned. It's changing. It's a moving target. Some other healthy ideas for eating less meat. Anybody like egg salad?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So egg salad's awesome. And if you want to reduce the amount of mayonnaise that you eat, you might try eating egg salad made with avocado instead of mayonnaise. So you add a good fat in there, the omega-3 fatty acids. You add all the value of a superfood avocado, and there's in a half of an avocado, there's 5 grams of fiber. So let me just see. Here's the avocado egg salad, no mayo. There's all the nutritional value of that. I'm going to keep moving so we can get through everything here, but hard-boiled eggs, a little bit of Dijon mustard, a little apple cider vinegar, doesn't make it tart, some garlic powder, dill weed, salt, flat leaf parsley, and half of a large avocado. Now, what I would say with this is don't make extra for saving for later. It's only good fresh, because you know how avocados get. So I love this idea, no recipe here. This is just a hack that I found that I really love as a way to have my pizza and not feel guilty. I found these Syrian flatbreads at Whole Foods. They have minimal ingredients in, not a lot of processed stuff that is bad for you. Lots of good nutritional profile here with fiber and low calorie. And they're separated into 4s, so you can use them as wraps as well. What I do is pop them in the oven for a few minutes until they start to get a little brown and a little crispier. Then I get them out and I put on my pizza sauce and the toppings that I like. and pop them back in and bake until even a little brown or till the cheeses are melted. I like my crust real crispy. So that's an easy, quick lunch. And you can prepare that ahead of time. If you have let's say you're using mushrooms and onions and green peppers, you could cut a bunch of those up and put them in a bowl in the refrigerator in the beginning of the week. Have your shredded cheese, your pizza sauce. You could whip that out and make those in no time for a quick meal. And they're very healthy. And serve it with a salad on the side. And believe it or not, we are at the end, and I still am 5 minutes of. I must have been talking a tin ear on you. So here's my treat. Here's my treat idea. Has anybody ever eaten chia seeds?
Yes, I have.
Okay, how do you eat your chia seeds, Vicki?
Well, I don't do it very often, but sometimes I'll put them on a salad, and sometimes I'll just eat them plain, believe it or not.
So you eat them plain, but they're little hard things.
Yes.
So let me make a suggestion for you that because, and I had my functional medicine doctor or my alternative guy tell me that if I ever have any I was having some gastro problems, and he said, "Are you eating a lot of nuts and seeds?"
Yeah.
And he said, "Cut those out. Don't eat so much. People overeat. They'll overeat because now we're told to put flaxseed and chia seed and all these things into our smoothies and then eat a lot of nuts. So people eat a lot of nuts." And so I eliminated that kind of thing and I felt much better. So be aware that you want to moderate this, but you can use it. And I would suggest with the chia seeds, they move through our system better when they're hydrated. So they're little hard things and they swell up when they're in water. So you might try this if you want to try chia seeds. Put chia seeds in a glass of water with some fruit, a big glass of water with some fruit. They'll swell up and you can have a beverage throughout the day that will keep you hydrated. And I don't have a measurement on that for you. I would just start small. I'd maybe put a half a tablespoon in there and see what happens. I'll have to measure that out at some point. But then you stay hydrated through the day because these become like little water bombs in your system. And so that's what they do in this dessert. They swell all up like tapioca. Don't they look like tapioca? So you can make chia pudding, and instead of using tapioca, you use chia seeds. And this is a handout that has 32 different recipes for chia seed puddings. So I would like if somebody would try one of these and come back and tell me what you think. So you'll get this in the email with all of these different, look, it's anything you can imagine.
And you're saying that that's kind of quote safer when it's either in a pudding or would a smoothie have the same effect possibly?
Yeah, well, you just want to give it time to swell up.
Yeah. And then that's not as
soften.
bad. Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
Soften. Okay.
Well, thank you for telling me that. I had no idea they swelled up because I always used them just as they are.
Yeah.
Sprinkling them on yogurt or something, thinking I was doing something healthy,
Yeah, and you just need to just give them a little more, and they probably hydrate a little bit in the yogurt. They just need a little time. And flaxseed is another thing to, grind up and use instead of putting on whole. So those are some ideas for quick and easy treats, desserts, inexpensive, easy. And whoops. And that brings us to the end of our session today. So we did cover everything that we wanted to cover. And just to let you know, I'm doing a healthy desserts class talking more about sugar later on today. And I'm also doing a class on Earth Day that is going to be really focused on what you can do to have a really fun Earth Day outside with a picnic menu. And I have some ideas for picnic, but also other things. And Rick told me I should show this today to get you excited. Next week, I'm doing a Kentucky Derby.
Oh. Yeah.
I'm doing a Kentucky Derby party, and I want you all to wear your hat, okay? So come to my Kentucky Derby party. All right.
I really enjoyed your class today.
Oh, good. I'm so glad. And I'm going to send you that email. There will be a feedback button. Please please give me feedback, and also take a look at our schedule so that you can pick another class and invite your friends. When you go into any class, you can click over here on the button and invite other people by sharing through Facebook or by email or copying a link and sending it in a text. And sometimes people have fun inviting their friends and bringing a group to a class, like maybe the Kentucky Derby party. So anyway,
Hey, do you know what time the healthy desserts class is?
I'm sorry.
Do you know what time the healthy desserts class
Yep,
is?
it's at 3 o'clock. Let me just double check that. I think 3 o'clock.
Oh, okay.
Next week, I'm doing Mexican Fiesta too. So
Ooh,
that could be fun.
Sounds good.
Healthy desserts at 3 o'clock. Yep.
Oh, thank you.
And spread the word to any community organizations that might be interested, WISE or senior living facilities. This is how we grow. This is how we keep the service free and the classes free for everyone. And we all continue to have a great time. So that's the role that you can play in helping to grow this community. And so I am so appreciative that you came today. I had fun.
thank you.
You're welcome. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, Deb.
Uh-huh.
Thank you.
Bye. Happy cooking.